Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox with another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineers Sports. And hallelujah, the Mountaineers survived in Waco, 34-31 over the Baylor Bears. An exhilarating contest. There really shouldn't have been that exhilarating, and upped West Virginia's record overall for the season to 8-4, 6-3 in Big 12 play, and dropped Baylor down to 3-9, 2-7 in Big 12 play. And I'll just say to lead this show off that this is a game that I feel like brought on a whirlwind of emotions if you're a fan like me watching this in real time. You know, satisfaction by the early on offensive success, rage by the kickoff returns for touchdowns by Richard Reese, which we'll get into, amazement by what Jaheim White can do with the ball in his hands, frustration by the terrible third quarter offense marred by penalties, disbelief by what was happening to the defense in the second half, despair when Garrett Green didn't get the 4th-and-1 conversion with 4 minutes and 20 seconds in the fourth quarter, disgust at some of the tweets that you left in your drafts about Neil Brown and this coaching staff that you probably saw on Sunday and were like, what was I about to say? You know, hope at the Isaiah Hankins missed 32-yard field goal, jubilation by the game-winning touchdown pass from Garrett Green to Jaheim White, and peace that no one took their helmet off and potentially cost West Virginia the game with a penalty like we saw against Houston. So 10 emotions there I just ran through for you in just over a minute's worth that you probably felt all of that and more. So when I say in these last 5 years how West Virginia has aged me, I feel like precipitously as a fan, it's games like this. It's games like this that you go through all of that you just love bye weeks or irregular weeks, maybe when West Virginia plays on a Thursday, so then you can just have a chill Saturday so you don't have to go through this all of the time like myself. But unreal. So let's get into it, as I like to do with these recap videos. There's so much to talk about with this one. I got to go 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, I think. Bear with me as I break down the details. And where I give you in the recap of this game, I'm going to also just kind of throw in a little analysis and opinions to kind of give you some of the, the narrative of the flow of the game from the first to fourth quarter, because there's really a lot to unpack in this 65-point game, 34-31. So starting it off, time me here. West Virginia won the toss and received the opening kickoff in a rainstorm in Waco with fewer than 10,000 fans in the stadium. Just an absolutely terrible atmosphere, but regardless, West Virginia had to go out there and play a full 60 minutes of football. A botched snap between Zach Frazier and Garrett Green led to West Virginia losing 9 yards of field position on that first possession, forcing them to punt. Nothing by Baylor on its opening offensive series, punt down to the West Virginia 10. 60 rushing yards by Jaheim White on 2 plays later, set up a 30-yard bomb by Green to Traylon Ray. Touchdown Mountaineers, 7-0 first quarter. Did you think Traylon Ray got his both feet inbounds, or even just 1 foot down? I think it was that right foot they barely had down there for maybe just a wink. So let me know how you thought about that play in the comments here on YouTube or on social media. I'd love to hear from you. What did you think about that? Did you think that was a little closer that might have warranted a review? I feel like if West Virginia was playing at Texas or somebody. But 3 and out by Baylor. Next WVU drive started out on its own 16-yard line. 5 straight run plays, highlighted by a 25-yarder by White, set up another bomb to Traylon Ray. Defensive pass interference, drive stalls, but Michael Hayes bounces back nicely after back-to-back weeks of missed kicks. 10-0 Mountaineers just a minute into the second quarter. The first headache, Baylor's Richard Reese returns the kickoff 96 yards for a touchdown, still 10-7 Mountaineers. West Virginia rebuts with a 7-play, 88-yard touchdown drive, highlighted by a 36-yard completion on third down to Hudson Clement and a 23-yard touchdown rush by Green, 17-7, 10-16 second quarter. This is where that headache from the first kickoff turns into a migraine. Reese returns the second kickoff of the game for a touchdown. Just the second time in program history. You'd have to go back to 1904 when West Virginia lost. I can't believe these numbers that the athletic department threw out on social media. 103-0 in a loss against Michigan in 1904. So you got to go back 2 world wars for the last time that West Virginia had given up 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in the same game. But there you go. 17-14. WVU still retains the lead regardless because of this incredible WVU offense. 25-yard rush by Green on the first play of West Virginia's next offensive position gave the team prime field position, but the drive stalled out inside the Baylor 20. Second Michael Hayes field goal of the day made it 20-14 with just 5 minutes and 44 left to play in the second quarter, with Baylor barely having to play any offense at that point in time. None at all in the second quarter. So Baylor used a 37-yard pass play from quarterback Sawyer Robertson to Jake Roberts to set the Bears up inside WVU territory. 2 penalties stalled out the Baylor drive in the red zone. 43-yard field goal by Hankins, no good. One last drive for the Mountaineers with no timeouts left to use before halftime. Another defensive pass interference on Ray, a 26-yard completion to Cole Taylor, and then a 19-yard completion of Preston Fox made it easy for Green to collect his then second rushing touchdown of the half. 27-14 at the half, an interesting decision that I really didn't like at the time and guess it didn't become consequential, but for a time it seemed like it did, that Neil Brown didn't decide to go for 2, instead just kicked for the extra point to go up 14 instead of 13. Regardless, that's your halftime score, 14 at the half. And at this point, if you were like me as a fan, I actually might be contradictory to most of the Mountaineer Nation. I was feeling okay. West Virginia had a little bit of a cushion with that 2-touchdown lead. You suffer the kickoff returns for touchdowns. Yes, I totally understand it, but Baylor's offense was no better than Duquesne's at that point in time from what you saw out of Robertson and Reese and what this receiving core was giving you. I wasn't really all that wasn't impressed at all, to be frank with you, about the Baylor offense, and West Virginia's D was putting pressure on them, doing well. I think the scoreboard made the WVU offense play with some urgency, be in attack mode, as Neil Brown likes to call it, instead of circling the wagons and trying to win ugly. I know West Virginia's past that, so I wanted some pressure put on them to go out there and score points and be effective. So being up 27-14, my pregame prediction was going to be 42-17, so if West Virginia could go on there, score 2 more touchdowns, hold them to 3 more points by the end of the day, I was happy. That would have hit my predictions, but if only I knew then what I know now what happened. All right, back to the recap. Start of the third quarter, first play, a frustration 15-yard personal foul penalty on Ben Cutter, and then an 8-yard rush by Robertson on 3rd and 8 near midfield gave Baylor some confidence, and then Keytron Jackson Jr. just straight up beat Malachi Ruffin on a 38-yard flag route for a surprising touchdown. 27-21 West Virginia, 11 minutes to play in the quarter. First play of West Virginia's next drive, Garrett Green goes 46 yards on the ground, up the middle, but the play is called back due to a phantom holding call on Wyatt Milam, which was huge, and I'll get back to that in my analysis here after I get through the recap. Jaheim White is knocked back 5 yards on the very next play. WVU stuck in the mud, has to punt, and what do you know? Good old Andrew Wilson Lamp makes his return on special team, comes out of nowhere on the punt coverage, smacks Baylor's returner, Josh Cameron, who had called fair catch. Baylor gets the ball on it at its 49-yard line, so extra 15 yards there added on by good old Andrew Wilson Lamp. First play by Baylor, Jackson Jr. catches a 38-yarder from Robertson down to the WVU 13. Baylor picks up a 4th and 1 at the WVU 4, and then Dominic Richardson punched it in to give the Bears their first lead of the game, 28-27, with 5:45 left in the third quarter. And then just right there, that extra point instead of the 2-point conversion that I talked about being the deciding factor at that point in the game. Green connected with Fox on a beautiful 29-yard reception on 3rd down near midfield on West Virginia's next possession. It was a beautiful catch. Unfortunately, looked like Preston Fox kind of slammed his head hard off the turf, all of his momentum going over his head, and that's what landed first. So I don't know if there could have been a slight concussion or just kind of knocked the wind out of him, and he had he was able to walk off really off his own power, but just kind of a scary moment there for Fox. Mountaineers, unfortunately, drive stalls right near midfield. Mountaineers have to punt. Baylor's next drive took into the fourth quarter. Ali Koba stuff on 3rd and 3 at the West Virginia 22 ended the Bears' touchdown threat. Instead, Hankins knocked through a 39-yard field goal. Baylor with all of the momentum after they got West Virginia off the field on 5 plays. Baylor forced a punt after an electrifying sack by Eddie Vesterinen on 3rd and 9 at the Baylor 38. Great play by Eddie V. 6:28 to play in the fourth quarter. West Virginia trailing 31-27. West Virginia gets 10 yards on a catch and second effort by Hudson Clement. 4th and 1 at the West Virginia 45, and Green doesn't get the full yard on the tush-push play called by Neil Brown. And this is when the fear that West Virginia was going to lose finally set in, I think, for myself, for a lot of people on Twitter, if you were following the action on social media and some of the other games that were going on in college football late in the evening last night. Neil Brown uses all of West Virginia's timeouts. The defense finally gets a stop on 3rd and 11 at the WVU 14. 34-yard field goal attempt by Hankins. No good. Huge missed field goal. Mountaineers have to go 80 yards for the win the other way without any timeouts and under 2 minutes to play. I think it was really around like either 143 or 123, something like that. It wasn't a lot of time to play with. So what do you know? Green goes on his Will Grier drive. Green hits Clement on an 11-yard pass on the first play of the series and is carried over the first down mark by center Zach Frazier, who made one of the toughest and smartest plays ever by a Mountaineer. It almost had like signs of J.D. Woods and Stedman Bailey back in 2011 when Stedman Bailey made this amazing catch over the middle. You can remember this at South Florida in the finale that had Stedman, who was clearly suffering through some sort of either mild or full concussion on the play, out extended catch, and he gets hit and he just is slow to get up. And I think J.D. Woods practically like pulls Stedman off the field so that he wouldn't get called for a runoff. That's exactly what Frazier was thinking of in that moment, that he couldn't go down, suffered an undisclosed injury, but I guess it's significant enough that he was apparently, according to Neil Brown, not going to play in West Virginia's bowl game. So the last play for his Mountaineer career as he tracks to try and go to the NFL. So injured on the play, crawls off the field. Brandon Yates gets out at the center position without a hitch. Clock still running at this point in time in the middle of the field. Then a 23-yard completion to Clement on the next play. 2 rushes by Green leads to a first down. Incompletion to E.J. Horton. Then with just under 30 seconds to play now, Green tags Jaheim White on a 29-yard wheel route deep left down the sidelines. You've probably seen the video by now, or if you watch the game live. Extra point, touchdown, extra point good, 34-31 with 23 seconds remaining, and no one takes their helmet off to cost West Virginia field position. So the last chance for Baylor from its own 46-yard line. Third-string quarterback R.J. Martinez gets chased near the boundary. The pass is broken up without any chance by West Virginia's Marcus Floyd. Mountaineers victorious. So now that I'm 13 minutes already into this video and I've kind of given you the recap, what I want to do for this one, to give my opinion on it, is I will give you the good and I will give you the bad. I don't want to give you the bad first. I want to give you the good so I can put at least, into context of why I'm happy at the end of the day that West Virginia won. So I'm going to give you the good of what I think from this game. Then I'm going to give you the bad. I'm not going to get too much into a big picture for the entire season and all of that jazz. I know that it's the regular season finale, but I think that is saved for a later video, maybe something that I'll do this week in a shorter capacity and break this into chunks, because we're still going to be talking about West Virginia playing in a bowl game. We have the opening of the date of the transfer portal. We're going to have signing day, early signing day. So there's still a lot to talk about with this 2023 season, even though now at 8-4, West Virginia is done with the regular season, not playing for a conference championship. But let's talk about just this game in particular. The good. Starting off, Jaheim White, especially in the first half. He was incredible. Absolutely, positively incredible. He doesn't have I forget which game it was. It might have been Oklahoma State or UCF, in which Robert Griffin III kept saying that Justin Johnson has fresh legs, and you could tell the difference between him and C.J. Donaldson, who had been taking a lot of punishment for West Virginia throughout the first 6 games or so. No, Jaheim White doesn't just have fresh legs, though he does because he didn't play very much over the first 6 games of the season. He is just that incredibly fast. I mean, finishing the day with 133 rush yards on 17 carries with the game-winning 29-yard touchdown reception, doing most of that damage. I think he was over 100 yards rushing already just in the second quarter. He did it all. He did suffer, I think it was either a stinger or some sort of just either a shoulder injury or something or other that was for a time that he had to check out of the ball game. So you hope nothing serious was done during that time in play. And granted, Neil Brown really had to unfortunately beat him, had to work him. He was just devastating on Baylor's defense and was just incredible out there. So, and just wanting to, Green was giving it a lot to him on the read options, correctly or especially in the first half, I think correctly. So White was just getting the ball frequently, carry after carry, maybe potentially wore down into the second half. I didn't necessarily see that. I'm just saying did most of his damage in the first half, and he was incredible with some of those rushes that I recapped in the recap. So game-changing speed once he gets to the outside, putting the Baylor players in really slow motion. And that's the kind of speed. And you know me, I'm a huge C.J. Donaldson guy and will always really defend him. But C.J. Donaldson will never have that kind of speed that White has. Not at his size, not at just kind of the back that he is. He's still more of the brawn. He's still the muscle. He's the power that's going to work between the tackles predominantly. And as though now having 12 games of evidence, haven't necessarily seen that kind of burst through the hole as consistently as we saw with C.J. Donaldson in 2022. But this added dimension of White is the perfect complement. I feel like they are the perfect complement to each other, and why next year, I don't see why not, that you can't split 50-50 carries, and both of these guys can't touch the ball, close to 200 times. So too far ahead of us right there, but for this game, I was super duper impressed by Jaheim White, and it just goes to show that he is one of the most important pieces, I feel like, for this 2024 team as he goes into his true sophomore season. I was also really impressed with the contributions across the board by West Virginia's pass catchers. I don't know what happened to Devin Carter. Wasn't really necessarily talked about as any sort of an injury or anything, but wasn't really involved in this game. Instead, across the board, Hudson Clement, his best game probably going back since the Duquesne game. 4 catches, or maybe the Houston game when he had the game-winning at that point in time touchdown. 4 catches, 80 yards, all of them huge in this game. Cole Taylor, 4 catches for 64 yards. Cole Taylor needs to stop doing this thing where he kind of bats the ball up in the air trying to make a play. I know he's trying to make a play and give himself a chance, but when he bats the ball up into the air like that, he's giving ample opportunities for these defenders who are just like piranhas next to a cow carcass when wanting to intercept the ball. He did that, I think, once or twice in this game, and it was just infuriating to me. But anyway, still productive game by Cole Taylor. Preston Fox mentioned that 29-yard reception that he hit his head hard off the turf, but that was beautiful. One of his best catches of the season. 3 catches for 51 yards. Traylon Ray, just 2 catches for 38 yards, did have the touchdown catch, but he drew 3 defensive pass interference calls in this contest. So that's exceptional. It just goes to show he's coming into his own as that number 1 receiver for West Virginia in this offense. Going to slide right in there, I feel like, for Devin Carter next season. Neil Brown's real excited for him this offseason once he gets stronger, he says, because he's got the speed, he's got the length, has the hands. So he's just showing it out there that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in this new Big 12 conference. And then Jaheim White, obviously, with the game-winning 29-yard touchdown reception. What I want to say about Garrett Green is what I was really impressed with is how much more patient, calm, and confident in his deliveries. You saw this often during this 2023 campaigns where he plays so fast within the pocket. He's looking around. Do I take off? Do I not take off? Do I stay in the pocket? And he just seems to it's like the SpongeBob episode where he's trying to learn how to drive. Floor it. No, Garrett, just stay calm, stay collect in the pocket. And he did that time and time again. Now, granted, I did notice on a couple of he almost had 2 interceptions. He threw one straight to a defender that he dropped, and then there was one that the defender kind of falling back in zone coverage, got his fingertips on that. Could have been an interception. I feel so granted, it's whenever that he's trying to hold on to those balls and he looks a little bit, as the TV viewer, a little more calm and collect in the pocket. He's trying to put more accuracy. He's trying to put more touch on the pass rather than just sling it out there. So I get it that maybe that he's just trying to aim it, not necessarily throw it, but I still think that's better than the constant overthrows that we've seen from this season. So something to watch for next year out in the maturation process of Garrett Greene in year 5 as a part of this program. But I was just really impressed as an overall for the day, and because of that fact. And also some of the times, I forget when it was, I think it was right before halftime or so, West Virginia was driving, threw the ball away 2 times. Kind of a dead play. Rather than try and throw a risky interception, throws the ball out of bounds, fight for another day, and West Virginia ends up scoring on the drive. So it just shows his maturity and football IQ. He just gets more and more confident on each and every start out there, and of course he has electric talent. So 16 for 25 for 269 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. 104 rushing yards on 14 carries with 2 rushing touchdowns. So a 4 touchdown performance by GG6. Fantastic out there. Great note here by the signal caller Jed Drenning, who finds awesome stats all the time on West Virginia football. Big time throws. It's Pro Football Focus's metric that tracks passes with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and in a tighter window. So according to Pro Football Focus, with the big time throw statistics, Greene now leads the Big 12 in big time throws with 29, despite only playing in 10 games. So next closest in the Big 12 is a passer with 23. So, there's I've been trying to track this all season long. It was kind of a preseason prediction that I gave you between both Garrett Greene and Nico Marchiol, and a number I was watching is, could they combined pass Geno Smith's 2010 stats when Smith was a first-year full-time starter for the Mountaineers in 2010, when Smith put up 2730 passing yards with 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. I was saying Greene was going to be right around, with Marchiol. And this is coming to be just about true. 2,400 pass yards with 900 rush yards. Greene alone. And again, so this is counting 2 games. I'm counting the Texas Tech and the full Pitt game as going toward Nico Marchiol's credit. And you just think Marchiol played at least a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half of the Duquesne game. So he's got his moments to add to these stats, but just Greene's stats alone, 2,178 passing yards on 135 completions with 15 pass touchdowns, 4 picks, with 708 rush yards and 13 rushing touchdowns on 111 carries. So right then and there, he's eclipsed it, in my opinion, in all-purpose yards comparing to Greene's passing yards. So Greene's giving you what Geno Smith essentially really, without, I guess, translating the added pass dimension with the rushing of what Greene can give to you. So that was going to have to be there for West Virginia to get to this point in the season with 8 wins. So Greene, obviously one of the stars of this 2023 season. I thought another thing that was a good out of this contest was West Virginia's 2-minute offense, scoring not just at the end of the game, but right before the half to make it 27-14, scoring without timeouts on either of those 2 series, marching right down the field for scores. That is impressive. That's something that's going to win you ball games in 2024 because you have that, you've been there before. You've done it before. It's not foreign. It was on the road. Even the Houston matchup should have, coulda, shoulda, woulda been a victory, but Greene did it there too. So he's got that gamer it factor that people talk about. So he can do it. So just sensational by all of this. And the line, I don't want to leave out the line. Just continuing proving that they're one of the best offensive line units, I feel like, in the Big 12, in the country. And that's personified by Zach Frazier's hero play there in the fourth quarter. So, to have that situational awareness, not only to carry your wide receiver across the first down mark to get you a first down, sensational, but then to go down in pain with a significant injury and crawl off the field to not cost your team time. How many me-first guys out there in college football these days who would have just, I'm in pain, not thinking about my teammates at that point in time, and, writhe in pain, cost you the 10 seconds run off. But instead, Frazier is that awesome of a football player. So kudos to 54. Love that guy. Hope he's an All-American. So now, let's talk about the bad. WTF. Almost losing to Baylor? Are you kidding me? What was that? First and foremost, what I'm just absolutely uberly frustrated about is the second kickoff return for a touchdown. Was Neil Brown trying to do his best impersonation of Dana Holgorsen against Kansas State in Morgan Burns in 2015? How dumb are you to kick to him twice? Reese is clearly Baylor's best player. I was kind of interested to hear his number called as I think he was involved in the very first play of the Baylor offense. So I talked about that in the preview video, how Reese had kind of been phased out of this offense, being used more by Pendergrass and Richardson as the years gone along. Same with Shapen, and Robertson did his fair share of running. I wasn't necessarily expecting that out of Robertson, but it just goes to show I don't watch Baylor week in and week out, but try and learn as much as I can about them for the preview videos. But regardless, you kick to him twice and they return it twice. Just was infuriating. And you think about it, because of how that kept them in the game. And then where do we start with minutes 31 through 58 of the game? I'm going to break these 27-ish, 28 minutes in two halves, offense and defense, because there's enough blame and enough just frustration to go around on both sides. The phantom holding call on Wyatt Milam changed the whole complexion of the drive, that quarter, the score. Terrible timing, huge consequence for West Virginia to lose 53 yards of field position. Green on that very first play, I feel was just all right, I'm pissed. I'm going to run right up the middle on these guys. He made a great read, and what do you know? He did it. He had one guy to beat for the end zone, still ends up coming up with a 46, 47-yard rush. All of that and more nullified by that holding call. Ticky-tack by those referees, who I feel Baylor got away with more than enough of their holding calls in this contest, and West Virginia gets called for that. I know it's because West Virginia was dealing with the fourth or fifth string Big 12 refereeing crew, being in more consequential games like Oklahoma BYU on Friday, Oklahoma State BYU, Oklahoma TCU on Friday, Texas and Texas Tech on Friday as well. So, or was that Saturday morning? I'm losing track of my days. They all kind of ran together around the Thanksgiving holiday. So you're dealing with a crappy Big 12 reffing crew, and they make that phantom holding call, just wanted to make me throw the Swami. So just really tough. And then the play calling by Neil Brown in those quarters, just West Virginia's O-line, and I don't know if it was just because of how many plays that they were on the field for the first half. I feel being winded and can go both ways, not necessarily just against your defense if your defense is on the field all the time because of the kickoffs, but a lot of running that was done in the first half. It just seemed like the offensive line for West Virginia was starting to perhaps wear out just a little bit into the third quarter, and Baylor's front seven was just playing with reckless abandonment, throwing in multiple guys, rotating them in, and for whatever reason Brown still wanted the run against this Baylor Baylor defense, and it just was not working. The pass was open. The passes were open, so I don't know if it just wasn't, play calling creativity or what he could do, but Green was playing great, and they were West Virginia's offensive line was pass blocking great, as they have done all season, it seems like. So just why did you not want to pass the ball? By that point in time, the rain had really stopped. So what was just the fear? Was it because it was a close game? I don't know. I just don't understand why there wasn't a sense of urgency to want to throw the ball. I'd love to hear that broken down in the press conference tomorrow by Neil Brown, or just to learn a little bit more about that game. Like, why did you still want to continue to run the ball when West Virginia clearly wasn't running the ball well? And then, of course, the tush-push play call was just way too far. That was a fourth and a long one. I think if that's fourth and inch, foot or inches, every time that's going to work. But that was a long one that I think you could have done something more creative. You could have went for, I think, at least a play-action pass to roll Green out, and then he has the pass or run option. Or just, I know C.J. Donaldson was kind of he was on a pitch count, was sparingly used for the second consecutive game there since Cincinnati, but that's an option to go to your 6'2", 240-pound, sophomore running back there for the first down. Instead, you have a smaller Garrett Green. I know he's getting pushed from behind, but just I didn't have a good feeling about it whenever, pre-snap, and then it just played out, and I was like, I just didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. Want to know how you feel about it? Let me know here on YouTube. So let's go to the defense. I'm thankful, I guess, within the bad. I'm thankful that this West Virginia defense got the stops it needed to in crunch situations, especially the one with under 2 minutes left to play. I mean, Baylor was at West Virginia's front door at its 11-yard line, and very well could have tried to go for it to beat, to outright rather than kick the field goal, because then if West Virginia responds with a touchdown, it at least just ties the game, but they miss the field goal, so it's the best case scenario for West Virginia in that case. So I'm really, really thankful for the stops that West Virginia got when it needed, because it needed a couple of key stops to win this game. But just way too reactionary, I feel like, as a theme for this West Virginia defense in this contest. It's just, maybe it wasn't because there wasn't much film or a little bit on Robertson, but I mean, he didn't look like he ran all that much different of a Blake Shapen run offense. And West Virginia just looked like it was being dictated to in the second half. I mean, Baylor finished the day with 119 net rushing yards. That's not necessarily bad, but considering Baylor wasn't on the field, like I said, for pretty much the whole second quarter, they did most of that rushing damage in the second half. And that was when West Virginia's defense really can't call they were tired or they were on the field for a long time, like the West Virginia O-line could say. You weren't gassed, and you were just still getting run on at points in time in this contest. And it was just really, really frustrating. You look at Reese's numbers, it's average 7 yards a carry. I don't know why Baylor didn't go to him more frequently. I wonder if he's trying to hit the transfer portal or something that's going on there. But West Virginia's front seven in the rush defense did okay, but when it's compounded with your secondary, Malachi Ruffin got beat for the first time, I feel like, all season on that one touchdown, the flag route to, I think it was Jackson Jr. Burks got beat on a long play to Robertson, in which the ball may have hit the ground. I know he had his arm in on the ball, and the wide receiver kind of corralled it with Brooks' arm against the ground, called a catch on the field. And then Beanie Bishop gets beat in this contest. So your three best defensive backs in coverage all get beat in long passes on this day. So when you combine it with the rushing that Baylor had, it just seemed like a lot of momentum was going Baylor's way, and like such a terrible team. That Baylor team is so bad, and they're so young, playing so many young players out there, and Dave Aranda is being a defensive coach. It just seemed like why why couldn't West Virginia's defense come through whenever you needed a stop, like we saw so many countless times in the first half? And I just mean to say, and this is kind of an overall feeling I'm really feeling after this contest, is I just think that this game provided the conclusive evidence enough needed that West Virginia needs to shake up its defensive staff and its defensive philosophy. You can't keep sitting back in zone coverage because you're going to get torched against good pass blocking teams like Oklahoma, who provided with Dylan Gabriel with enough time and also can throw the ball deep downfield. So you saw that's exactly what West Virginia did against Baylor, notably with that Traylon Ray. Like, that's a play I feel like everybody can realize is your guys can't sit back in coverage, especially as you lengthen the field in zone coverage. Like, zone coverage can work in the drop back 3 steps, a lot of slants, a lot of out routes, a lot of curl routes, a lot of dig routes, stuff like that. That can work. But when you have a team who can give their quarterback 3 seconds of more dropping back to pass and can hold it and look for route 1, route 2, route 3, look through his progressions, zone coverage does not. Like, you don't have that time. You don't have that luxury. You're having 1 or maybe 2 guys covering either a half or a third, depending upon the coverage, cover 4, cover 3, cover 2. Like, your safeties are spread across and those zones just get bigger, and then they have multiple receivers entering those zones, so quarterbacks have more than one option to throw the ball downfield. So I just don't think – I thought this of Jeff Castile's defense years ago, when you can think about Brian Brom and so many of those other Big East quarterbacks just tore West Virginia up when they would just drop back in that 3-3-5 zone coverage. You saw that plenty of times through the Tony Gibson-led era days. And even when West Virginia had its Keith Patterson's and kind of like between the two of Castile to Patterson to Gibson and now to Jordan Leslie. So just sitting in zone coverage, I get the way it works because of so many Big 12 offenses going out there and just dinking and dunking the ball down the field. But it's just getting you beat and you're reactionary, and when you don't have a front seven that can get in there and wreck opposing teams and get after it, and don't get me wrong, West Virginia's front seven has really has been through a lot this year, I feel like, given how many injuries to the linebacker position and this, that, and the other thing. But it's not like we're talking about a Georgia team or a Texas team or Oregon. So it's just like sitting back in zone coverage. In the other position, and I know that he had a sack in this game, so kudos to him playing in his, or he has the extra year of eligibility, come back for a 6th season if he wants to play in Morgantown, and Jared Bartlett. And I don't think this is necessarily a criticism against Jared Bartlett because of what he's being asked to do. The bandit position is not an edge rusher. It's not. I've watched enough of this defense to feel like that Jared Bartlett isn't just a guy that's getting sent to rush the quarterback every single time. Because if he was, his sack numbers would be much better than they are, especially against this porous Baylor team. He would have had at least 2 or 3 sacks, I feel like, in this contest. He's more of an outside container. In which case, I just feel like there's so many times that Jared Bartlett's just sitting there, going weeks, not against the strong side or the play side. He's just sitting on the opposite side, waiting for something to happen. If either there's a toss back, so it's great. It's almost like a player in a spy kind of position, whatever comes in his general vicinity, and they go against him. So. But I just don't think that works necessarily into the scheme. If you use a concerted 4th down pass rusher, either going with 2 defensive tackles, essentially a second Mike Lockhart on the inside, on the outside, or move Eddie V inside, put Tamia Durage on one side, put Sean Martin on the opposite side, that makes a little bit more sense to me. I think because then you have your 4-man, pass rush, which is kind of something that I've been calling for. So if you get more of a pass rush with those 4 down linemen who are also going to be able to make more plays, I feel like in the run defense scheme, then you drop back 7. Had to do my math there real quick. So if you want to sit back in zone, it makes a little bit more sense because then you have 4 down rushers. But when you only have 3, you have this one bandit position just out on his own little island doing his own little thing, in which most of the time out there is nothing. Like, it's just a wasted player. It's just you could use his skill, that position. I'm not speaking specifically about Jared Bartlett. That position specifically for better use. So that's what I mean to say is I just think that this defensive philosophy needs to go a bit back to the drawing board. Because it was another West Virginia defensive performance without a touchdown. I know Beanie Bishop's been sensational this season and what he's brought in the passes defense and interception department, but this is still another year by this West Virginia defense that doesn't have enough interceptions, in my opinion, for the types of teams that you're going up against. I know they had the big game against Pitt. They had last week they didn't have any turnovers forced against Cincinnati, but again, they've had the UCF. The turnovers were so between Pitt and UCF, what was that? 6 interceptions of their 7 for the season. So you're not getting enough out of your secondary. They're guys who are making reactionary plays in zone coverage and being asked to not miss tackles, to just drop the guy. And I get that. I totally get that. But I think that's not a good enough defensive philosophy for you to beat these upper echelon teams out there, especially whenever your injuries pile up. So I just think, again, Baylor turned the ball over 15 times on the season, and West Virginia couldn't get anything out of them in this contest. So I just think that this is decision time for Neil Brown on Jordan Leslie and the other defensive coaches on his staff, and I think that includes Jeff Coons, who's the special teams coordinator. I did this research. Now I wanted to find out how's West Virginia doing in kickoff coverage, and what do you know? We got something here. We got some stats. So now West Virginia giving up a kickoff return for a touchdown against Houston, giving up the 2 against Baylor this week. West Virginia is now fifth worst in FBS this season in average kickoff return yardage by an opponent at 26 yards per return. And you would think that's not that much more than a touchback. What does it really matter? But it tells a story because touchbacks aren't accounted for in those returns. So they're in front of, and you got some average teams and you got an above average team here. Clemson's dead last, so that's interesting. Then Washington State, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and then West Virginia. So I've already chronicled, why is Andrew Wilson Lamp on the field again? Did you not learn your lesson after that Oklahoma State game? So he comes out there and punks you again and getting you a personal foul. I mean, he is really, really, really approaching Pat Miller territory as one of the worst Mountaineers, or I think the Mountaineers who cost you the most now Pat Miller's 2012, so definitely of the last decade. So let's go 11 years. He's really creeping into that territory. So what is he doing out there? Then the kickoff coverage, and granted, he's had some moments at times. Preston Fox has given you some, he was especially in the first half of the season giving you around 11 yards per return, but he's made some bonehead or questionable decisions. That's one punt return he took in the first quarter where he just got mauled by 6 Baylor defenders and didn't call a fair catch. I'm just thinking to myself, why are you not calling a fair catch? I know we haven't got to see anything of Jashawn Polk this year, and West Virginia tried to address that at the returner position through the portal by adding him and moving Jaheim White into a kickoff return duty. They're trying some different things, but if you're gonna include Coons into that equation in special teams, I know they had the kickoff or the kick blocks against TCU, so that kind of plays into it. I don't know. I just think it's not my decision. I'm not the head coach. I don't spend the money, by how these coaches, who's on your staff and who's not. But it's just to say that you need to level up defensively. Now they're giving up 27.5 points per game, I'm seeing. I wanted to see West Virginia for the season be right around 27 or fewer. So you haven't necessarily taken the jump back toward West Virginia's defense being up to that 2020 level. I would say they're equal to or just a little bit better maybe than last year. And I think if West Virginia had Trey Lathan, that might change some things given how great he is, or having Josiah Trotter also in there. But I mean, Ben Cutter's played admirably, I bet, at linebacker, and a guy I feel like who will once again contend for a starting spot next year once Lee Koba graduates. But just schematically, schematically being number one, the schematic change needs worked on because of the bandit position and what I'm talking about, and this reliance on zone coverage that I just think you're going to get beat more frequently than not against better opponents next year. And if you're West Virginia, this Mountaineer Nation, who's now, I feel like, having the expectation of, we're a team that now you've set a floor at 8-4, so you have to go now do that against Kansas State, Kansas, Arizona, Penn State. There's 4 teams who have been ranked so far this season. Oklahoma State on the schedule next year. So it's not going to be necessarily as more of a pancake, cupcake kind of schedule as it has been for this 2023 season. So you're going to have to level up. We've talked about it already with my last video about what West Virginia needs to do in the with retention, with the transfer portal opening up December 4th, and how that's such a huge objective. Now that Neal Brown and staff have won their 8th game, so reaching that, I feel like, unspoken, internally set goal of 8 wins for a season. So if Neal Brown is retained for 2024, which I guess ultimately comes down to Ren Baker's decision, but I don't know. Let's talk about that in another video. But I would just say that this defense, I think, needs to be evaluated, revised. Got to do something a little bit different for 2024. But ultimately, this is kind of what I'll end with for the bad, is you never should have been put in a situation in which West Virginia needed a last-minute touchdown to beat Baylor. I'm thankful West Virginia came out with a victory and not a loss, but to have to win it in that fashion by 3 points so you don't cover the spread also. I know for your style points, you didn't really necessarily have style points, I feel like, in this contest, the way the game played out. You beat a bad opponent, really bad. But I guess the good, to close that segment about the bad, you had only beaten Baylor at Baylor once in your time in the Big 12 Conference. And that was 2017 with Will Grier. So Garrett Green had his Will Grier moment, went down there. I think that's another lesson learned for Neal Brown and staff, thinking about some of the other ancillary accomplishments that West Virginia has come up with this year. Finally, getting the revenge and winning the backyard brawl, number one. Number 2, finally getting the monkey off your back and beating Texas Tech. And number 3 being beating Baylor at Baylor. So making up for that terrible 45-20 loss in 2021, which was, I still think, right up there is one of the worst losses of Neal Brown's era, where West Virginia just didn't look competitive at all for 4 quarters. So that's another lesson learned, another feather in the cap for this coaching staff. And once again, Garrett Green leading his second, not the Houston game winning, but just developing those ice in his veins and really going to be a quarterback that's considered one of the best. Not according to Clint Brewer, one of the worst in the Power 5 conference. No, one of the best in the Big 12 conference for 2024. So Gold got to 8 wins, achieved that. Didn't lose to a conference bottom feeder in Baylor. Thankful for that. I think for the time being, and again, I'll save this for another video, I said this a couple of weeks ago that West Virginia had to win against Cincinnati and had to beat Baylor for Neal Brown to save his job, get to those 8 wins mark before the bowl game. So we'll see what the bowl game brings. There was good, so there was good. There was a lot of bad. It should have never been that close, but WVU won. So if we're staying with this mantra for the whole season of a win is a win is a win, West Virginia finishes tied for 4th in the Big 12 conference standings to complete the regular season after being picked dead last, 14th preseason by the Big 12 media. So got to give West Virginia some props for that. I mean, just spitting right back into the face of all of these national and Big 12 pundits. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Clint Brewer from 24/7 Sports, calling Garrett Green the worst quarterback in the Power 5 conference. Yes, I'm calling you out, Sheehan, Jariah from CBS Sports, picking West Virginia to finish 3-9 for the season. Pretty much calling like for West Virginia's whole season to implode on its face. If West Virginia would have lost the backyard brawl, Neil Brown get fired, and half the team transfer out by week 4. So, praying for West Virginia's downfall didn't happen. It hasn't happened for over 20 years, Sheehan. So, wrong. Barstool's Unnecessary Roughness podcast crew, Brandon Walker, Casey Smith, Jack McGuire. Yeah, I'm putting names out there. So many others who just prayed for this program's downfall at preseason over this summer. It was just that summer of like media mudslinging against West Virginia, as I talked about in one of these videos. So didn't happen. West Virginia's going bowling. Hopefully it's the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Louisville. I want to see West Virginia take on the Cardinals and beat them. I'd also take the Guaranteed Rate Bowl against Maryland to come full circle and beat those twerps after losing that to them in College Park in 2021. So last check on my predictions for the year, and we're going to go to the all-knowing West Virginia Swami, who made his appearance in my preview video for the Baylor game yesterday morning. So finishing the season, thanks to the Swami here at the very end, 8-4, just like the Mountaineers record on my predictions this year. Once again, losing out on the Texas Tech. It's pretty much swapping the Texas Tech and TCU losses for wins, which ended up being losses in Houston and Oklahoma State. So that's where I kind of had my mess ups. But otherwise, 8-4 on my predictions for the Mountaineers record. I did have to switch that last one. So did preseason kind of pick West Virginia to finish 7-5 in the regular season, win a bowl game to get to those 8 wins to save Neil Brown's job. So still have that out floating out there that West Virginia would get to 8 wins. But I'm very thankful, very appreciative that West Virginia got to 8 wins into the regular season. So that's it for Baylor. I'm almost at an hour, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, Swami. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Swami. If you like this video, like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. Share it on social media. If you have any thoughts, feelings, good, bad, indifferent, I want to hear from you. Let me know here on YouTube, or you can catch me on Twitter at Carson_Fox27. If you like my video, if you like this video, check out some of the other videos on my channel. And if you enjoy those, love to have you as a subscriber. Just reached over the 100 subscriber mark for this 2023 season. So starting it out for the first time just in August after doing these videos kind of informally on Twitter. So appreciate all of you out there who have subscribed. And we're not done yet. We got to talk about a bowl game, and I'm going to have a lot to talk about, with you as the transfer portal opens, as we see some names go in and out. So we'll be following that. I'll be following that with you all through the month of December as we look ahead into January. Probably will go on a bit of a hiatus, as we get into real workout season and then before spring practice. So, but that's months ahead already. So right now we just got to enjoy it. We're at the finishing part for the regular season. We'll have a bowl game to talk about, but there's more. We got to evaluate more. I feel like talk about some of the transfer portal additions that West Virginia had this season and how they've panned out. Take a look back on this young core that many fans have been very excited about. Talking about on social media. So I'll have more content for you probably coming up this week on my channel. So make sure to subscribe if you enjoy that, and tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week, and I have a lot of fun bringing it to you for all of Mountaineer Nation. So let's go. Hail West Virginia. 8 wins achieved.